Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live cast once again. I want to talk today about customer love and why that is really the key to success in business. Love and emotions in general. We're going to have a nice mushy call today. But before that, I want to express my gratitude. Many of you I know have been buying my book, which was released last week, which is Winning Digital Customers, The Antidote to Irrelevance. And I'm excited to say it was an Amazon #1 new release. It then became an Amazon bestseller. Let me see here. Switch my slide here. Oops. It was a bestseller in a number of categories. I won't go through all of them, but it was #1. It still is, actually. If you go to Amazon right now, it's #1 bestseller in consumer behavior. It's a #1 bestseller in direct marketing. By the way, just so humbled by some of the other books that are on the list with me. Some really amazing books. So if you haven't checked out Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, really a core seminal book about psychology of buyers. Absolutely. I don't know Nudge, but certainly Blue Ocean Strategy is absolutely a foundational work about enterprise strategy. Predictably Irrational, also an amazing book all about some of the things we talk about in Winning Digital Customers. Actually, we probably have a index bibliography citation or two to that book, but essentially it's really about how the decisions that we make as consumers are so much more emotionally based than rationally based. You know, it's funny, actually. One thing that bugs me is amazing book. You should definitely buy Dan's book, but the word rational always bugs me a little bit as being a little judgmental, you know. And the truth is that most of us make most of our decisions based on emotion. So the fact that we call it irrational is a little bit you know, and the truth of the matter is we're all pretty irrational, and most of our behavior is emotional. So why don't we just call it emotional? Because that doesn't sound so bad, right? We make rational choices and emotional choices. And who's to say that one is right and one is wrong? But as marketers and product developers, it's very important to know that the decisions that we make and the decisions, even more importantly, that our customers make really are heavily driven by emotion. And so one of the things that we talk a lot about in my book is how we can create that emotional journey for the customer. Because by putting them on the right emotional path, by inspiring the right feelings in them, this is how we drive their behavior. And hopefully to their own benefit, but also to our benefit, because inevitably, as we say all the time on this live cast, most positive business results that you're after, whether it's revenue or cross-sell or upsell or customer loyalty or net promoter score or whatever it is, it all comes down to the behavior of your customers and your prospects. And a lot of that behavior is driven by emotion. So Dan got that absolutely right. And certainly those are some inspiring ideas that we touch on as well in Winning Digital Customers. And we are also the #1 book in direct marketing. And Donald Miller is another amazing author. I highly recommend you check out his book. His new book, interestingly, I believe that his new book is Marketing Made Simple, which is the *5 book. It's funny, he's got two. How about this? How is this for a show off, right? The guy's got 2 of the top 5 books in this category. But Building a Story Brand is I don't know when it came out, maybe a couple years ago. Fantastic book. And really it gives you a simple formula for how to think about being able to articulate what your company does to other people in a way that will really be compelling. And if you haven't read Building a Story Brand, it's a must read for anyone in business. And I have not read Marketing Made Simple, I have to admit. It's, I think, relatively new, but I will definitely check it out. And I've had a chance to hear Donald Miller speak on a number of occasions, and it's fantastic. So if you have a chance to engage with him, I highly recommend that as well. So some amazing other content. And you know, it's interesting because the theme I want to talk to you today about love and emotions in building a brand and building a successful digital business. You know, it's I mean, I guess it's no surprise that in the lists that this book is ranking on, there are also, of course, other books that touch on similar topics. But you know, great other work. And I would add that we were also at one point the number 15 most sold Kindle book overall. I think we were the number 5 best-selling nonfiction book. So really appreciate everybody who's been buying the book, leaving reviews, and I really hope that it will be of tremendous value to you. I do want to remind you that it is for a very brief time still available for 99 cents. and then we'll be going back to the normal price that the publisher set, which I think is $14.99 for the Kindle version, if I'm not mistaken. Also, I want to make sure you do realize that the hardcover version, of which I'm holding one in my hand, but the actual availability of these will begin for the general public on January 4th. So if you're interested in a hardcover book, you can also pre-order those from Amazon. And we will actually be sending you, if you're on our mailing list, a link to order them at an even greater discount. So if you're not on one of our mailing lists, you can go to winningdigitalcustomers.com or go to wdc.ht/free chapter. And you can get not only the first chapter of my book for free, but that will put you on our mailing list. And we will send you a link when you can buy the hardcover book actually at a discount greater than on Amazon as well. So that is something you can look forward to. Okay. So enough with the commercial. Let's get to the content for today. So I want to talk a little bit about, not that, I want to talk a little bit about love, So I'm here to tell you, well, first of all, let me ask you a question. How much do your customers love your brand? How much do they love it? I mean, think about the brand that you work for. How much do you love it? And I don't know the answer, right? Maybe you're going to say, oh man, I love it. Our customers love us. In which case, that's amazing. I'm here to tell you that the brands that are doing the best in the marketplace with the most revenue, the best profitability, the greatest growth, the highest EBITDA, the highest valuation or valuation multiple that the market sees, these are brands that are generating a lot of customer love. Whether they are pure play, what you'd call kind of digital brands like a Google or an Amazon or a Facebook or an Instacart or what have you, or whether they're great legacy brands that have been successful at maintaining their relevance in today's digital age, brands like Disney or Nike or Coca-Cola. And so in either case, the brands that are doing the best and the brands that have the highest value are brands that customers truly, truly have a passionate feeling of, and you can call it what you like. I call it love. Now, of course, there are many meanings to the word love, right? I love my wife. And I love my Ford Mustang. I probably shouldn't have said the Mustang in a way that sounded so much more enthusiastic than my wife, but she doesn't listen to the live cast anyway, so it's fine. But no, really, but obviously, it's not the same, right? And there are many ways to love. But I the way I think about it is, and I'm sure there are brands in your life that you love, and I don't know what it is for you. It might be Lululemon, it might be Snapchat, it might be it might be the International House of Pancakes. I don't know. I have to admit, I kind of like the International House of Pancakes. I don't know if it reaches love exactly, but I love those jalapeno omelets then they come with the cheesy pancakes. I mean, that's good stuff. Not good for you, of course. So I try not to have it too often. So the point is that the brands that are doing the best today have that quality of consumers loving them. And one of the things, and the reason I have this slide up right now, is that one of the things that we see is that brands rise and fall in terms of love. So we have this spectrum, the brand love continuum that we use in our consulting. And we say, well, look, first of all, you want to know where you are today. Are you loved like Disney? And by the way, that doesn't mean by everybody in the world, right? I mean, no brand is loved by everybody in the world. There are people who hate Disney. There are certainly people who hate, and obviously there are people who are very angry at Facebook right now. Any brand you could think of, there are people who hate it. And that's fine, because to be massively, wildly successful, you don't need to be loved by everybody. You just need to be loved by your customers. And you need that group that you're targeting as your customers to be large enough to drive a business of the scale that you're trying to become. But but the brands that are successful, so are you a loved brand that has a passionate, reasonably sizable following like a Nike has, for example? Or are you just resonant? Resonant means, you're very well liked. A brand, some brands that are resident in my life, I would say, are, for example, Verizon. I'm quite fond of Verizon. I have a lot of Verizon devices. I don't know that I love them, but I certainly am positive on Verizon. Another brand I would say would be United Airlines. I haven't flown them much this year, but I'm positive on United Airlines. I think they give a good product, and I'm satisfied, and they do a lot for me, and I appreciate that. So they're resonant to me. Then there's brands that are just relevant, right? Maybe a brand that's relevant in my life is, say, 7-Eleven. It's relevant because there's a bunch of them around me. Sometimes it's convenient. It's a brand that's a part of my life. Would I, like, if I heard that, one way to test what levels you're on is And I should say, before I say that, I'll say, and then there's irrelevant. Brands are irrelevant. You're like, do they even really exist? Like Radio Shack has become largely irrelevant. There are still Radio Shacks, but like there's not one around me. Like to me, this is a brand that's largely irrelevant. Or maybe I know there's one and it's far away. It's just a brand that's really not part of my life. I'm aware that it still exists in a very limited manner, but really doesn't mean anything to me. And then there are brands that are totally non-existent, right? And we've seen an increasing number of brands fall off this scale over the last, well, it happens all the time, but at an accelerating rate over the last few years, even before COVID, whether that's brands like, Circuit City or obviously Toys R Us, which we talked about on a prior live cast. And now we're seeing, in the era of COVID, more and more brands that are either becoming non-existent or they're waffling between irrelevant and non-existent because they're in bankruptcy and their future is threatened. So one way of testing what level any given brand on is for you is to just ask the question, well, how would you feel if that brand disappeared tomorrow? If it's a loved brand, like let's say Apple, and by the way, you may hate Apple, but how would you feel if Apple vanished tomorrow and you couldn't buy their products and services anymore? It was totally unavailable to you. I mean, a lot of people would be devastated. If you are devastated by the disappearance of that brand, well, then that's a loved brand. Now, what about resonant? Well, if a resonant brand disappears, you'd be bummed and disappointed. If Verizon was gone tomorrow, I'd be like, really, man, gee, I'm gonna have to replace that in my life. Like that's a loss to me. I really count on them. Same thing with United. I'd be like, oh man, United Airlines is gone. I don't think I'd lose sleep over it. I don't think I'd, be in tears over it. But I'd be genuinely bummed, right? That's a brand that's probably for you resonant. So what about relevant? Relevant's a brand where if I found out they went out of business, I'd think, oh, I need to know that. That's going to change something for me, right? I'm going to have to adapt. I'm not bummed, right? But I'm like, oh, they closed the all Amoco stations. They didn't, by the way, it's just an example. And there's one that I drive by that I usually get gas at. Okay, mental note. That was relevant to me. I need to know they're no longer business. I'm going to have to get my gas somewhere else. No big emotional reaction, but it's meaningful to me. If you're irrelevant and you find out that brand goes out of business, you're probably going to say, who? Or you're going to say, were they even still in business? So that's how you feel when. So if you're trying to figure out, well, gee, how do I feel about Nike, or how do I feel about, I don't know, whatever, the Gap? Ask yourself, how would I feel if they were gone? There's a story I tell in my book where it starts the book. If you've read the first chapter, I tell about my son Joseph, and he's 8 years old right now. But I think when this story occurred, he was probably 7. And Joseph loves to send texts to our family in our group chat with all kinds of crazy information, like crazy knock jokes or something he saw on the internet, a funny picture he saw. He'll send us a text like about an article that there's like giant squids have been spotted off the coast of Japan, So we're always amused by whatever Joe is going to put into our family, iMessage group chat. So one day, though, he put something a little more serious. He put a link to an article on CNN, I think, about Toys R Us closing, because you probably remember, I think it's 2 years ago now when Toys R Us went out of business. And he said something like, all caps, all Toys R Us stores are closing forever. And then he put that little a tombstone emoji, and so I was somewhere else in the house and I got that text and I thought, oh, gosh, I hope the little guy's okay. I'd heard about this, but it didn't occur to me to go talk to my little son about it. He'd certainly been to Toys R Us on a number of occasions. So I went and found him. I knew where he would be, of course, because there's only one place he sends his texts from, which is the kitchen iMac. So I went and found him and I said, hey, so I saw your text. How you feeling about Toys R Us? And he looked at me and he said, I don't care. And I was quite surprised by that response. He goes, Dad, we can just get whatever we need from Amazon. And I thought, if you ever wanted to know why Toys R Us went out of business, and I know we talked about this in a prior webinar, Wire Livecast, but he didn't love Toys R Us. What did he think? To him, Toys R Us was somewhere between relevant and irrelevant. I guess probably relevant. It was one of those, hey, mental note, Toys R Us is gone, got to go somewhere else, but definitely not love. See, when I was a kid, I loved Toys R Us. Being taken to Toys R Us was an amazing privilege. I love my Kodak camera. That's another thing with its flash bulbs. I love my Timex watch. So the point I'm trying to make here is that brands, when they reach love, in order to sustain that love, they have to continue to evolve and change with the times. Because, of course, Kodak's not loved today because the value proposition that Kodak offered us, the reasons that we loved Kodak once upon a time, are gone. The world has evolved. People have evolved. Customers have evolved. And Kodak did not evolve. Whereas Disney, Nike, other brands have evolved. And so I want to offer you, just to summarize on this slide, then I want to move on to one more thought here before we run out of time. Think about where your brand is. You can start by thinking about where other brands are, but then think about where is your brand on this customer love continuum. And of course, it's not going to be the same for every single customer. Obviously, there are some customers that are going to feel differently than other customers. Maybe there are some customers for whom Disney is not a loved brand. It's only resonant or it's only relevant. But you're going to find a cluster. You're going to see a bell curve. You're going to see, well, this is where most of my customers are. And by the way, as I said before, there's always going to be people that hate you no matter who you are. But the core of your customer base, where are they? There are many, many brands, like let's say a lot of big financial services brands, that would be very hard pressed to find almost any customers that really love them. Are there fan pages for Citibank? I mean, I don't know that there aren't, but I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't, right? That's just not a brand that most people love. Is it relevant to a lot of people? Yeah, it's very relevant. Might it be resonant to some people? Yeah, could be, but probably not loved. And so you might be thinking to yourself, okay, and by the way, if you keep falling down that scale, you eventually become non-existent. And by the way, absolutely, you can move up that scale because every business starts non-existent. There was a time when Amazon was non-existent, right? And then it became irrelevant. They were this little thing and almost nobody knew about them, just a few people. And then they became relevant, and then they moved up the scale, right? And so it's fluid. That's why it's a continuum. You can move up and you can move down. So you want to think for your own brand, business, where am I now? Where might I have been in the past? Were we higher and we dropped? And most importantly, what do you need to do to either move up that scale or to make sure you stay if you're at the top of that scale, because it's not guaranteed, right? It's not like once you're an Academy Award-winning actor, you're always an Academy Award-winning actor. No. If you lose connection with your customer, if you're no longer relevant, you're going to fall down that scale, as many of the examples I gave. So one more diagram I want to show you here, which is the recipe. You may be thinking to yourself, well, gosh, even in your own life, if you want somebody to love you, how do you get someone to love you? You might think, gosh, it's chemistry, it's fate, right? It's kismet. It's, I don't know, it's this emotional thing, it's not something you can make happen. I would say that's false, particularly with customer love. I'm not here to give, relationship advice. That's not the purpose of this live cast. So I won't try to suggest that everything I'm going to say is applicable, although you might want to think about whether it is, because I think a lot of it probably is. But the main point I want to talk about is what is the recipe for companies and brands to achieve customer love? And it's actually a pretty simple recipe. I don't know about you, but I can make a food dish if it has 3 or 4 ingredients, but more, I kind of feel like it's beyond my pay grade in the kitchen. So the good news is that the formula for inspiring customer love really just has only 3 parts. Now, they're not necessarily easy, the 3 parts, but there's just 3 parts. So what are the 3 parts? The base of the pyramid is meeting your customer's needs. If you want your customer to love you, you must meet their needs reliably and consistently. That means you first of all have to know what those needs are. And of course, if I try to go to 7-Eleven and every time I go there, they're closed or they don't have what I need, I'm going to stop going there, right? And I'm certainly not going to feel positively towards them. So that's the basic, that's the essential but not sufficient level. And there are a lot of brands in my life that meet my needs that I don't love. But there are no brands that I love that don't at some basic level meet my need. And that's not only a practical consideration in the sense that, I don't even want to do business with a company that doesn't meet my needs, but we're talking about emotions here, right? What does it say to me when a brand is meeting my needs? It says they understand me because they know what I want. And that's sort of the baseline level of a relationship. Somebody who basically gets you and understands you at some basic level. So that's meeting needs. But as I say, it's not sufficient. So let's go up a level. The next is delights. Delights means they do something extra. They go above and beyond, at least periodically. It doesn't have to be constantly. They're giving you something special. Have you ever been in a restaurant and someone, the maitre d' or the owner sent over dessert that you didn't order, or a credit card that says to you, hey, you missed your payment last month and that would be a late fee, but we're going to waive it. Or a gift you get in the mail from a real estate agent sells you a house and then they bring you a lavish gift when you, a lot of times it's something like that, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be a phone call of concern. When COVID started, I got calls from a couple companies we'd worked with just to say, hey, we just want to see how you're doing. We were just thinking about you. And I'm like, really? You're thinking about me? And they weren't trying to sell me anything. They were really just trying to check in with me. So there's a lot of ways to create that unexpected delight, but it's doing little bits of extra things that go above and beyond meeting someone's needs. And, you might want to say that someone like Apple, you buy an iPhone, but when you experience the unboxing, that's above and beyond, the amazing way in which it's packaged. Now, these days, people may expect it, but, certainly in the early days, that was a delight. Or other things they might do, an extra features they add to the product over time. You've already paid them, and yet they're giving you more. These are examples of how you create delight. Okay. And by the way, what does it say when someone gives you that extra bit of delight? What is the emotional response? Because on a very rational level, you could say, well, I'm getting more for my money. Yeah, maybe. It depends what you're being given. It may or may not even be anything that you really want or need in the sense of, a gift basket or a call. It may not actually have tangible value to you, depending on what it is. But emotionally, it says they value me. They value me. And there's a lot of companies that want to tell me that they value me. For example, you're a valued card member, but do I believe it? Do I believe it? So just telling me I'm valued in most cases is not going to make me feel valued for most people. But when you do something that delights, that shows the customer that they're valued. And so that's a next level of emotion, right? Not only do they understand me, but they really value me. I'm important to them. That's the second level. And the third level of the pyramid is resonates. What that means is that you stand for something that resonates with their values. If you look at these brands, Disney stands for something. Ben & Jerry's stands for something. Whole Foods stands for something. Nike stands for something. And in order to be truly loved, it can't just be that they give me what I need and occasionally make me, United Airlines is a good example of a company that I really believe meets my needs and occasionally delights me. But what do they stand for? I don't really think that I see anything that United Airlines as a customer really stands for. And it doesn't mean that they don't have an advertising slogan, right? But I don't really have a feeling that there's something sincere that they really stand for as a company. And the truth of the matter is, and that's not meant to be a knock on United Airlines because they're a great brand and I fly them all the time, not during COVID, of course, but otherwise. But I don't think they get to love for most people. And whereas Virgin Atlantic, that was a brand, and I haven't flown them in many years, but that was a brand that really stood for something and stands for something, right? They have a point of view. They stand for a kind of a mission in a way that, at least as a customer, I don't see from not only United, but from most airlines. And the truth of the matter is that most brands don't stand for anything, at least nothing that is sincere and is demonstrated to their customers. They may have a mission statement, they may have a tagline, but that's just like I said about being told I'm a valued card member. It's fine to tell me that, but it doesn't really resonate. It doesn't mean anything. It's when you show me. And similarly, you can tell people what you stand for, but most people are cynical about advertising and cynical about messaging from brands. It's when you demonstrate what you stand for. And for example, the way that Nike did when they supported Colin Kaepernick and came out in support of Black Lives Matter. And I don't say that to make a political statement. In fact, there are other brands like, say, Chick-fil-A, who have come out in support of conservative social values, which I personally disagree with, but which yielded a very positive response from their customers and generated more customer love from the customers that they were targeting, from the customers with whom those values resonated. And of course, it's a good point because whenever you do stand for something and you resonate with some customer group, you run the risk that you could alienate others, right? When Nike came out in support of Colin Kaepernick, their stock initially went down. And there are many people that said, oh man, there's going to be all kinds of people who won't buy Nike shoes anymore because of this political stand. And you know what? That was absolutely right. There absolutely were people who stopped buying Nike shoes because they disagreed with Nike's stance in support of Black Lives Matter. But there was a much greater number of people who were willing to buy more Nike shoes and wanted to pay more for even more expensive Nike shoes. The premium went up because they generated so much more customer love with the customers that they were targeting. Or they, so they might have narrowed their story a little, but they massively increased the love because it's a lot. One strategy is to just meet the needs of everybody. you can do that, but then you're a commodity. And then probably you won't get the business of everybody because there's other companies that are also basically meeting the needs. Look at most gas stations, most gas stations don't do anything to delight. They don't do anything to have value. In fact, I might even disagree with their values. I might feel like they're polluters, but I need gas. So I go get gas. Fine. For my Ford Mustang, which I love. But, so they're available to everybody, but it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be their customer. It's much more powerful for most businesses to be loved. And I say that because look at the stock market. Look at the companies that are doing the best. They are the companies that are loved. So think about that. Think about the pyramid in your own business. Once you figured out where you are, you want to know why you are where you are. It's because of how you're doing in these 3 tiers. To what degree you're meeting the needs of your customers, to what degree you're doing a little bit of extra to delight them, and to what degree you're really demonstrating that you stand for something that your customers resonate with. So that's the formula for love. You heard it here first. And I wasn't kidding before. Just as a fun experiment, consider for the people in your life that you love or that love you, but it's even easier to think about it for the people that you love because you have greater insight into why you love that person. Why do you love them? Is it because they meet your needs? Is it because once in a while they do something to show that they really care about you and that they value you? And is it because that you're somehow aligned on, the meaning of life or the purpose of things or a larger mission of some sort or another? I'm not saying that every single person in your life that you have all 3 of those feelings for, you want to marry. Obviously, there are different flavors of love and different types of relationships, but that's what yields strong connections between, I'll postulate, people. But given that that's not my area of expertise, I'll dial it back and to just say the area that is my area of expertise, which is with brands, with businesses, with companies, with today's digital customers. So that's today's live cast. I want to remind you once again that my book is for just a couple more days. And I mean it, every time I go to Macy's, they tell me everything's 50% on sale just this week. And then I go back the next week and, everything's still, now it's 40%. The next week it's 60%. This is not that kind of thing. We only lowered the price because we wanted to get as many sales as we could the first week because we're trying to get on the bestseller list. So we'll see whether we do or not. We did get the Amazon bestseller, which is great. We're trying to get on some others. But anyway, once the launch is over, there's no reason for us to price it at 99 cents. It's worth a heck of a lot more if I do say so myself. So this is a limited time offer, no joke. So if you would like to grab the Kindle book for 99 cents, I don't actually know for sure when it's ending, but it's just another couple of days. So if you haven't gotten it yet, I suggest you do. To do that, you can go, you should just go to Amazon and find the book. That's fine. But if you want a short link, you can go to wdc.ht/Amazon. That will take you directly to our book page as well. If you've read the book or will be reading the book, I would super appreciate it if you would leave a review. That helps others know what you think of the book and helps them make a decision about it. So again, thanks. Great to talk to everyone today. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat threads and we will try to answer them either just in the chats on whichever platform you are watching on, whether that's Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, or possibly if it's sort of a big meaty question, like we did last week, we covered a user question, a viewer question. We took a whole session to cover one. Now, that was not even last week. That was the other day. That was Monday. So, there's that opportunity as well if you have a question that you would like to hear answered. So thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye.